Hi, it's Mike DelSignore. In today's video, I want to talk about what happens if you're not a citizen and you're facing deportation and you're trying to vacate an old conviction that's preventing you from either staying in the country or you're looking at removal proceedings. What can you do? So I've helped people in this situation before. My name's Michael DelSignore, a mass criminal defense attorney. And what you need to do is you need to reopen one of those old cases. So if, let's say, for example, you have a conviction that is preventing you from staying in the country, that ICE is trying to remove you from the country. A lot of times that's going to be what they call an aggravated felony or crime of moral turpitude. It could be a domestic charge. It could be a drug offense. It could be a gun charge. It's going to be a fairly substantial crime typically. So what you need to do is you need to then bring that case back to court to see if the DA will either A, reopen it and allow you to plea out to a different disposition, or whether you can vacate the plea in its entirety and go to trial on the charge. So people that, immigrants who face these kind of issues need a lawyer that's done this before. I've had other cases where I had a case where a gentleman had admitted to a domestic charge, an aggravated felony, very serious crime under federal immigration law. I was able to vacate that plea to allow him to stay in the country. So what happens is, so there's different ways you can try to vacate a plea. Sometimes the argument is that you weren't properly given the immigration warning. Sometimes it's the argument that there was that you weren't given effective representation when you initially resolved the case. You didn't knowingly, intelligently, voluntarily admit to the charges. You didn't know the full consequences of what you were doing, and that's why you're asking the court now to reopen the case and give you a new trial. So these are cases where, if you know somebody that is having trouble with immigration and they need to reopen their case, feel free to have them call me. I've handled these before. I understand the procedures. I understand the mechanisms, how this is done. I've had to open cases. Sometimes I've done this in other contexts, not just for immigration. I've had people charged with OUIs who are looking at serious jail time, where we go back to court and undo one of the prior offenses. So if you're facing deportation, you're facing an immigration proceeding, and it's the criminal conviction that's preventing you from being considered for change of status, or being considered for asylum, or any kind of other remedy that you would have otherwise gotten without that conviction, you need somebody to go to court to look at the underlying plea that you took to see if there's a way to undo that offense. So what's the first thing I would do if you hired me for a case like that? We would first want to get all the paperwork from the court, get a copy of the plea sheet, the police report, see if this is a case that, one, at the time, did they have a strong case at the time? Should you have resolved it? Do they have the evidence now, if they still want to prosecute you, to prosecute the case? So we want to look at the case to see, what was the case like at the time? Was it defensible? And what is it like now? Is it still defensible? Then the next step is we got to prepare an affidavit. We want to prepare what are the reasons we want to put forth in our motion to tell the court why this plea should be removed, why we should undo this plea. So we put all that down in writing. We put a motion. It's called a motion for new trial in terms of how the court looks at it. Then I would send it to the DA, and I would try to actually conference with the DA to see if I can get any agreement with the DA about what should happen with the case. If I can, obviously that makes it easier. If I can't, then we have the judge here, and we present all of your mitigation. We want to show how long have you been in the country, what's your family status, what are your ties to the United States, what are your contributions to the country. Because ultimately, what we're going to do is we're going to present to the judge an argument, and we want it both compelling from a factual point of view that they should undo this plea, and from an emotional point of view that, you're a great person, you have ties to this community, that if the judge doesn't allow our motion, that, he's going to be breaking up a family, or setting aside something that shouldn't be set aside, making you leave the country, leaving your family, your connections behind, your employment, where you've had your probably your entire life, and you want that preserved. So if you have questions about this, if you're not a citizen, if you have questions about what you can do to stay in this country if you're facing deportation proceedings, give me a call. My cell, 781-686-5924. You can call, text anytime at that number.